guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'll be covering part 3 to a pretty popular story I covered about a few weeks ago, which is titled, While Deployed, My Fiancée Had Multiple Affairs, so my dad came up with the most diabolical way to, well, you all remember. And as a recap, guys, that's about the guy who right now is in his, I think, mid to late 60s, and he shared his story from back in the 80s and 90s when he was in the Army, how he met a gal that he became engaged to, a gal named Becky. And just like a lot of these stories go with young guys in the military, they have terrible choice of women. And to no surprise, it turned out Becky was a big giant cheater. And while he was deployed and all that during Iraq in the early 90s and everything, she was cheating away with one of the officers that was in charge of him while he was in Korea before he went to Iraq. But he didn't know about it. And eventually when he was done, he would move back to the States, moved her in, and only after she moved in with him did he find out the evidence that she'd been cheating on him all along with this guy, full-blown affair, and he was heartbroken. But then he reached out to his dad, and his dad came up with the ultimate plan to get rid of her because she had moved in with him, and there were a lot of rules and laws, particularly with the military, that made it difficult to get her out. He couldn't just evict her. And a lot of you guys were wondering about that, including me. So the dad came up with this idea, let's bring your mom in. Move your mom in with you because your mom needs help or something like that, and she'll just drive Becky crazy until she finally leaves. Well, that's what he did because his mother ruined his family when he was a kid. The mom was cheating on the dad, and it ruined the whole thing. It was a big, giant mess. So who better to get rid of a hoe bag is an older hoe bag? And that's exactly what happened. It was freaking hilarious about the whole thing. Well, anyhow, our update here, part 3, this guy gets into more details about what was going on, responds to a bunch of questions, more details of what the mother did to drive Becky crazy to get rid of her, what happened to the mom, how long was the mom there, what happened to this dude afterwards, all sorts of things. It was pretty entertaining. And so for you guys who really like the story, you'll appreciate this whole thing. So he continues his story, says, hello SSM. Thanks again for sharing my story. After listening to it, I wanted to fill you in on some of the things you wanted to know. Why the plan, all the drama that took place, and what happened to my mother, and what happened to Lieutenant Wimpy, well, here goes. Why the plan? I not only consulted with my father, I told my sergeant about what was going on. The sergeant was a good friend, and I trusted him. My sergeant, I'll call him Ted, was a wild tiger as a young man. We all called him Rocky. Ted knocked out more guys in bar fights than I've ever seen in my entire life. He knocked out 3 guys in one night. He was a badass mother effer, and I loved him. Well, sounds like a guy you want to have on your side, not as your enemy. Now, Ted was arrested twice on base. Once for ASSAULT, yes, I gotta spell it out, especially in the beginning of this video here, and once for a DUI. Back then, we had a rehabilitation program called correctional custody. Instead of Ted going to the brig and being dishonorably discharged, he was rehabilitated in correctional custody. Yeah, sure. Why am I bringing this up? Because after Ted completed 2 enlistments, he became a sheriff's deputy. Even though Ted was a 2-time felon in the military, these felonies happened on base, and the military handled it separately from the local police department. Yeah, you never knew who are your local police officers, huh? This record was never shared with local law enforcement. I bring this up to demonstrate the fact that the military does things their own way. Well, I was told growing up with my dad, there's the right way and the wrong way, and there's the Navy way. And I'm sure that applies to the Army way, the Marine way, the Air Force way, and, They can either help you or destroy you, and civilians don't understand how the military operates. Many good men were discharged from the military for no good reason, other than the command just didn't like them because they bucked the system, and this is why I need a plan. I explained everything to Rocky, and he just shook his head, saying, do not roll shit uphill and not let Lieutenant Wimpy and Becky cast a shadow over my military career, because if it came to that, I would be a marked man. So I went with my father's plan. Well, your father's plan to bring your mom in this was genius. Now there's a saying, if the military wanted you to have a wife, then they would issue one. I think I've heard that a few times in my 5 years doing this channel. Well, it's partially true. The military can't stop you from marrying whoever you want, but the military doesn't have to recognize your marriage or give you the housing and monetary benefits that come with it. They don't have to allow your wife to accompany you on your assignments and can make your married life hell, especially back then. Well, while your wife's making your life hell, the military's making your life hell. When Becky and I got engaged, I went to my command immediately and forecasted my marriage over a year in advance, as it actively discouraged marriage at that time, and I wanted to soften the blow back. The command had a mandatory indoctrination checklist that all prospective couples seeking to marry had to complete. We started this before she went back to Maine to get her stuff. This checklist had to be completed in person by both Becky and I. The checklist was extensive, and was even more extensive if a service member was trying to marry a foreign-born spouse, complete with background checks, etc. Well, I got no problem with the giant-ass list, and especially with a foreign-born spouse. I don't think it's the first time that gals from other countries see American soldiers over there and like, hey, to get the guys to take them out of there for a good life, or a better life. The following is only a fraction of the list of what I can remember, but this isn't important to the story and why I just couldn't serve her an eviction notice. Lots of guys in the comment section were like, why didn't you just kick her out legally? Why'd you have to move your mom in to do all this crap? Well, obviously there was a reason for that. Becky's home of record, the official residence, was my now home, and she was completing the pre-marriage checklist with my command. Now here's all the different things that went over. Number 1, the Red Cross benefits and services. 2, USO. 3, base chapel and chaplain services and counseling. 4, family services. 5, base hospital protocol and procedure. 6, base legal and base personnel. 7, moral welfare and recreational services. 8, spouse preference and employment opportunities. 9, mental health and counseling. 10, enlisted wives groups and clubs. 11, base postal services. 12, temporary lodging facility and support services, etc., etc. And that's only part of the fucking list? Why? Aside from all the other BS that can happen to you if you get married in the military, which many of you are well aware of, all this crap you got to deal with just to get a fucking wife? I know guys say all the time, SSM, if you're in the barracks with all these dudes all the time, you want to get married so you can get out of there and get a house and all that. But still, ay. So I knew the power Becky had within my command, and she could destroy my military career with a single accusation. Sad but true. I had to be very cunning and cautious, and here's why. I wasn't worried about civilian cops or civilian law or eviction rules, as I could deal with that. I actually feared the military and what they could and would do to me if Becky made a false complaint saying that I did bad things to her. Even though we weren't married yet, my home was now Becky's legal home of record at the time, and the base knew it. Okay. I figured there was a logical reason why he didn't just evict the bitch. My command couldn't make me leave my house if Becky made up false accusations. But all they had to do was assign me to the barracks while they investigate Becky's accusations. That is exactly what they would have done, and I couldn't have done anything about it. And civilian courts had no say in it. That's interesting, given the fact that it was your own land and not, you know what I mean? I wasn't going to leave my house and move into the barracks. I wasn't going to let that BIT cast a cloud of shame over me and destroy my career while I was banished to the barracks. This is an example of how civilians don't understand what kind of pressure military men endure. We literally sign a commitment until death when we swear our oath. We cannot give 2 weeks' notice and quit. We can't call in and say we won't be coming into work. We can't say no to an order. We can't tell our bosses to fuck off. We can't turn down additional duties on days off, holidays, weekends, or say I'm not going to Iraq. If we did anything like that, we would unlace our boots. They would unlace our boots, put us in handcuffs, and take us to military jail. There you go. There is no HR department and no wrongful termination lawsuits in the military. There is no recourse when the command makes a decision. The military literally has your life in their hands. If Becky went to my chain of command with a complaint of ABUSE, which Lieutenant Wimpy was encouraging her to do, that would force me to reveal the contents of the letters. That meant a bigger investigation, rolling shit up a hill and going against rank. As Rocky said, I'd be a marked man and my career would be cast in a shadow. When he talked about those letters and everything, remember in the first story that when this guy moved to Ren and he still didn't know about her cheating and all, or shall I say affair? Those letters are he found all those letters, love letters, back and forth to her and this Lieutenant Wimpy, one of the guys in his command. So yeah. Knowing all that, some parts of Lieutenant Wimpy's letters were ringing in my ears at the time I was making my decision to go with my dad's plan. In the last few letters, it was clear that Becky had told him and she was marrying me. This sticky toe shitbag lieutenant went from trying to talk her out of it to instructing her how to ruin my military career, divorce me, and take all my shit. Lieutenant Wimpy certainly deserves a major ass whooping. And many other things. Because this guy knowingly did all this. You know, first, as you recall, he didn't know she was with this dude, and eventually he did know. This is why I said my sadness turned to hate and vengeance when I read the letters. Becky's utter betrayal crushed my heart, but my military mind took over. This is why I went to my father and Rocky for advice. I was feeling incredibly stressful at the time, but in my mind, I went to war with Becky. Well, you have to change that frame of mind. That's pretty much what it is, because they go to war with us. I was going to win this war. I hated Becky now and was going to manipulate the shit out of her. That's the reason for the plan and why I couldn't just evict her. Okay, I get it. He says, okay, now on to some of the drama during the time my mother was living with Becky and I. Remember, guys, when he found out Becky was cheating, quick reference here, he went to his dad, and his dad came up with a plan to get his mother involved. His mother was a hoe bag too, and ruined their family cheating on his dad, and she desperately wanted to get back in this dude's life because he had nothing to do at that point in his late 20s, early 30s. The dad said, get your mom involved. She wants to be in your life. She'll get Becky out. And she did by driving her freaking crazy. So we're going to get more into that now. And yes, it was all drama. I'll go over some highlights that make me laugh to this day, and hopefully some of your viewers get a laugh as well. The Way of Women, oh my goodness, SSM. What I'm about to share only makes me like your channel even more. My mom went on to really put on the pressure. It got deep, really deep, and Hobag Becky had no clue how to deal with it. I've always had a sarcastic sense of humor, but after joining the military, it evolved into demented, sarcastic humor. I think that happens to all of us in the military. Being surrounded by nothing but guys, all we talk about was tits and ass 24/7. I picked out the parts I thought would be humorous and still explain the gravity of the situation. Well, my mom gradually took over Becky's role as the woman of the house. My mom started doing all the cooking and cleaning, etc. You think Becky would be like, great, do all the cooking and cleaning, no problem. Well, Becky was the one that did the cooking. Becky would have to confront her and repeatedly tell her, please don't cook tomorrow, I'm going to cook dinner. Even when Becky cooked, my mom would get in the way in the kitchen and pester Becky with wonderful tips and tricks on how to cook better. Becky was going nuts. Remember, Becky held out for I think 8 months, 9 months of this shit. I mean, it was, to her credit, man, she didn't back down. She dug her heels in, but still, your mom just wore her down. One night, Becky had rented a movie from the video store before Netflix, and wanted to watch it after dinner. It was the movie Gremlins. Oh, God. It was about cute, furry little creatures turning into demonic gremlins. Dude, I saw it in the fucking theater in the 80s. And I had to leave middle of the movie. My sister started crying, and they took us home. Pissed me off. During the movie, my mom got up to make herself a glass iced tea and asked if we wanted some. As she was walking to the kitchen, my mom said, isn't it ironic how these cute little creatures are really deceitful, horrible beings, while glancing at Becky? Hey, Mom, takes one to know one. Becky looked at me with lasers in her eyes and went to her bedroom. I didn't get laid that night, but I didn't care. My mother was driving Becky mental, and I loved it. Awesome. Another night after Becky took a shower, she came into the living room to sit in the sofa chair to paint her nails and toes. Becky loved her sofa chair and brought it with her from Maine. It was one of those old cloth-covered recliner Easy Boy chairs. My mom was constantly ball-hogging her chair and even moved an extra lamp next to it to help her read her books and hold her tea when she was relaxing in the chair. Now, when my mom moved in, she brought with her the clapper. It was a sound-activated remote that would turn on and off with the lamp when Mom clapped her hands. Yeah, dude, I remember the clapper. I didn't own a clapper. My parents didn't own a clapper. Nobody in my family owned the clapper. In fact, nobody I knew owned the clapper, but I remember the stupid-ass commercials. If you recall, guys, you clap your fucking hands and, the sound will turn off whatever's hooked up to the lamp or the TV or whatever. Where the hell am I here? It was supposed to be for old people that couldn't get out of the chair, but my mom loved the Kurt clapper and used it every day. My mom was sitting in the lazy boy when Becky asked her if she could sit there because she wanted to paint her toes and nails. My mom said sure, sat on the couch, and then clapped her hands, turning the lamp off as Becky was sitting down. Becky stared at my mom with daggers of heat and said thanks for turning the light off. My mom clapped her hands again, and the light turned back on. Now, as I said, I was doing everything not to laugh. They continued to stare at each other for about 5 seconds like a couple of cats getting ready to fight. That would have been pretty funny to watch. This was about 3.5 months in, and I was having so much fun. Even though I was looking forward to Becky leaving, I was still banging her every chance I got. In fact, she was always initiating and turned into the Energizer Bunny. Even though I despised her, I would take a look at her body and say to myself, what the hell, one more for the road. Well, you know what? You can do all this stuff to her that, well, I'm not going to get into it. While in bed, Becky would always tell me my mom was a wicked bitch. I said, yes, babe, she is. I already told you that. Ignore her. This is temporary, and I assured her everything would be okay. Remember, he sold his fiancée on this, that it was going to be temporary. Mom's having a hard time here, Needs a place to live. Things didn't work out with her boyfriend. And you all recall finally did it. Was when he said, yeah, Mom's going to move in permanently to help with the grandkids. But that's at the end. One day, talking to my mother, she told me to start wearing condoms with Becky and not to trust her birth control. She went on to explain that she'd been following Becky and was pretty sure she had something going on with a male coworker. Thanks, Mom. And with all the pressure my mother's putting on her, Becky might try to baby trap me. I said, you're pretty sure, or do you have evidence? My mother told me to trust her instincts and to never use, and to not use a condom with Becky. And to never not use a condom with Becky. I asked her, how am I suddenly supposed to explain to Becky that I want to use condoms? My mother said simple, tell her I told you to. Tell her it was for Becky's best interest, as my mother didn't want her daughter-in-law to be a pregnant bride on her wedding day. Well, that night I pulled out the condoms and told Becky what my mother had said. Becky immediately got enraged and started short-circuiting like R2-D2 getting electrocuted. That's a good one. She put on her robe and went in the living room, yelling at my mother, saying she wasn't going to control her sex life. Holy crap. Drama, drama, drama. Your mom's a fucking master. I literally can picture your mom sitting on that fucking lazy boy chair with the clapper and all this, and your Becky's going crazy, and she probably has a grin like the Emperor in Return of the Jedi when he's just sitting there on his fucking throne and he's like, good, or some shit like that. That's your mom in the fucking Emperor chair. Your dad brought the Emperor in to mess with her. The Emperor with tits. My mom calmly sipped her tea and asked Becky to sit down. My mother urged Becky to deny to use condoms, as she wasn't going to allow her daughter-in-law she loved so much to walk the aisle of shame as a pregnant bride. She wanted to explain it was the right thing to do, but she was so looking forward to her beautiful grandchildren after the wedding. Becky couldn't disagree, but later told me my mother was a meddling old bitch and couldn't wait till she was gone. I calmed Becky down and told her not to worry, my mother would be gone soon. Well, a few weeks later, I arrived home a bit late. As I entered the house, I could hear my mother talking in her mom voice. When my sisters and I were kids and screwed up somehow, my mom would make us sit down and she'd read us the riot act. As I entered the living room, I saw my mother in Becky's chair lecturing Becky, who was sitting up at the edge of the couch. I could tell Becky had been crying. Her mascara was smeared and her hair was puffed out all over the place. My mother calmly took a sip of her tea and said Becky had something to tell you. I looked at Becky, and she started crying, got up, and ran into our bedroom. Well, this can't be good. Drama, drama, drama. I didn't know what the hell was going on. I went into our bedroom, and Becky was laying face down, crying. Oh, for God's sakes. I told her to explain what the hell was going on. She started crying even harder. Oh, she's going full-on Tusken Raider now. She was gasping her throat and pulled her shirt collar down until my mom had stepped on her throat, almost choking her unconscious and killing her. What? Now, SSM, I'm a trained combat trauma medic, and Becky is a nurse. Remember, she's a nurse? As I looked at her throat, I could tell there was nothing wrong with her throat, but I could see a visible shoe print just beside her collarbone on her upper chest. I pulled Becky off the bed and brought her back into the living room. What the fuck? My mom went on to explain that she was out shopping and just happened to stop into this food court to get a drink. As she was walking through the food court, my mom said she saw Becky sitting way too close and being way too touchy with a male coworker. That night before I got home, my mother confronted Becky while she was cooking spaghetti. My mother told Becky she had seen her at the food court and that her behavior was not that of an engaged woman. Again, this is his mom, who was a serial cheater, and is the reason why, this dude's family broke up when he was a kid. This is why the dad roped the mom in, because she's a master. And she was being disrespectful to her son, and she was going to tell me there was obviously something going on between her and the male coworker. During the confrontation, Becky blew up and told my mom to mind her own effing business. And there was nothing going on with the male coworker, and to stop stalking her. Apparently, Becky threw a hot pair of tongs at my mother, and they started fighting. Ooh. My mom proceeded to body slam her to the ground. Becky started kicking her legs at my mom, and my mom said that she had to stand on top of Becky to pin her there until she calmed down. That night in bed, I asked Becky if she really had her hands all over her coworker. She said, "Of course not." My mother was a lying WHORE. She told me she loved me and only me and would never do anything like that ever. I told her I believed her and then proceeded to take advantage of her sole love for me. Apparently her neck was no longer hurting as she proceeded to reenact scenes from Deep Throat, complete with swallows and smiles. Well, if the shoe fits, wear it. The bitch is going to be gone pretty soon. Well, the next week is when I dropped the Moab on Becky, telling her my mom was going to stay permanently as she could help raise our kids, and it was going to be wonderful. It's a week later that my lying, deceiving, worn-out bullseye and unfaithful hoe bag of a fiancée told me she was leaving me for good. I gotta say, man, she was determined to hold out. She wanted to milk that life. My mother had literally smothered Becky, drove her nuts, and she was now out of my life. My military command had never known anything was wrong, and I was feeling great. I was happier than a pig in crap, and my father and I celebrated with a guy's night out. I also threw a party at my house, and my military buddies came and spent the weekend. Hell yeah, man. You're probably celebrating like the Ewoks on Endor with bonfires and shit in your cabin in the woods and all that. Oh yeah. The Emperor's dead. Well, no. Your mom, the Emperor, Becky's gone. Now we got to get rid of your mom. Because now, what, you got to bring in your grandma to get your mom out? Because seriously. Who's going to get your mom out? My mom cooked for all of us, and we had a blast. Ted got trashed. You mean Rocky. Ted got trashed and was hitting all over my mom. Oh, for God's sakes. You can see where this is going. Ted was a certified cougar hunter and loved older chicks. Okay, so if you were in your late 20s, I guess maybe early 30s, I'm going to guess at this point, your mom's... I don't know how old your mom was when she had you, but... So probably your mom maybe is like in her mid to late 50s. So she took care of herself, and it was dark enough, okay, I'm sure my mom loved the attention, and she probably effed him later on. She was still a beautiful woman at her age, and had been at least 5 months since she got any. Are you sure about that? Well, you all wanted to know what happened to my mother. After Becky left, my mother sat me down and asked if she could stay a little bit longer. Okay, guys, for all you guys that called that shit, pat yourself on the back. And wanted to see my sister's kids throughout the summer. I said she could stay as long as she wants. Dude, what are you getting yourself into? But my plan was to rent out my spare bedrooms, and after they were rented out, she would have to move out. Well, my mother stayed with me to the end of the summer, and then she returned back to her live-in boyfriend. Okay. All right, that worked. I thought you were going to say she was stuck with you. She's still with you. That's what I thought you were going to tell me. You're in your 60s and she's in her fucking 90s and she still hasn't left. I think she really wanted to stay a bit longer so she could fuck Ted all summer. One day before she left, we were drinking, talking, and relaxing in lounge chairs on my boat landing, enjoying the beauty of the lake. My mother got a bit tipsy and was talking about the old times. She slipped up and made a very curious comment about Aaron's father. I now had an idea why my father went and spoke to Aaron's father and why he wouldn't tell me about it, which I mentioned in the first part of the story. Yeah, that was in the prequel. My mother was a hoe bag more than I do. Well, at least you can admit it. End of the summer came, my mother left, and she said, I'm not going to lie. My mother left, and she said, I'm not going to lie, and I cried and hugged my mother. I cried and hugged my mother upon her departure. But I knew deep down I could never trust my mother 100%. That's a sad thing. Like, okay, obviously you buried the hatchet in so many ways and all that. She certainly helped you. But you always knew deep down you could never completely turn your back on her. That's unfortunate. As for Lieutenant Wimpy, oh boy, this is good. Karma came for him. I can neither confirm nor deny, but according to rumor, a couple of guys jumped him, breaking his leg, his nose, a few ribs, a dislocated kidney. Sounds like someone called in a favor. Well, if anybody deserved an ass whooping, I'm talking a serious hospitalized ass whooping, it's Lieutenant Wimpy. Well, that's a bit of my story. I went from clueless to a self-respecting relationship man. After that, I was never the same again. My first girlfriend, Rebecca, was also smoking hot. We would meet up 3 to 4 times a week for months on end, and it was going good. Then there was a period of about 3 weeks. She didn't come over, saying she was too tired from work and all kinds of other BS excuses. I called her on the phone and said I've been waiting weeks to see her, and if she didn't come over that night, I was going out and would find someone else, and hung up on her. Good for you. Well, golly gee, she showed up 45 minutes later. Oh, imagine that. When your man lays down the law, look what happens. He says, SSM, don't get mad at me, as I dumped her a few days later. I'm not mad at you. She sounds like trash. She wasn't a nurse, but she was a dental assistant. Well, watch out for them too. I went on to date several gals, and finally one day got married and had a family. No shit. Well, by that point you were very well versed. Congratulations. Well, that's the part of my story, and thank you, SSM, for your channel. All the best. There you go, guys. All the questions you had about the whole situation, they were answered. Very good, sir. Well, I had a feeling eventually you moved on and got married, had kids, and I'm going to assume that, you didn't make the same mistakes with your wife that you did with crazy-ass Becky and everything, and you helped raise your children in a way that they didn't make some of the mistakes you did. And I can only imagine the relationship between your mom and your kids, and I want to know what the relationship was with your actual wife. I'm going to guess because by the time you got married, you had some good sense, better sense in you about women. That your mom was like, okay, she's good, therefore I'm not going to fuck with her a little bit. But there ain't no way your mom, with her superpowers for evil when she wants to use it, didn't, test the berries a little bit with your wife a little bit. I mean, there's a reason why there's the jokes about mother-in-laws. But anyhow, I'm rambling on here. So good story, man. I appreciate you writing in with an update because y'all wanted to know. All right, guys, that's it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. And, guys, you got a story to share, send it to me, strongsuccessfulmale@gmail.com. And if it works for the channel, I'll definitely cover it. This also applies to questions you may have about a current situation you're having, or you find a crazy story online or an article or something like that. Again, send it to me, and I'll probably find a use for it one way or another. And be sure to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe. I'll catch you next time.